Well, the migration to California was started by my oldest brother Dick. When he got out of the Navy, he married a girl from California, and they settled in the Long Beach, Hawaiian Gardens, Artesia area, Norwalk, that general area right there. So then, about the time that Sue and I got married, my mom left Illinois and she went out to join Dick. And by that time, Dorothy and her husband George and their kids had all gone to California. So my mom, my oldest sister, and my oldest brother, they were already in California, which made it easier for me to have a base to go towards when we left Illinois. So when we got there, my sister Dorothy lived in a tract house about 1,000 square foot, three very small bedrooms. She had 8 kids. My mom and my sister Diane was staying there, and then Sue and I and Bridget and Shelley were staying there. Or Bridget, excuse me, Shelley wasn't born yet. But anyway, we had one big house full of people there. So as soon as I got a job, of course, we got out and got our own place. But all of us lived there. I had a sister, Marilyn, who lived in Andalusia for a long time, but then she moved down to Orlando, Florida, and lived down there until she passed away from breast cancer years ago. After I was there about 6 months, worked for a lawnmower shop for a while, my brother-in-law, George, who was married to my oldest sister, Dorothy, he got me into the sheet metal apprenticeship program, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, since I never got any higher education. But I got into the apprenticeship program, which was a 4-year program at California Polytechnic Long Beach campus. And I served a 4-year apprenticeship there and became a journeyman. And in about my last year as an apprentice there, I also took up an apprenticeship in gunsmithing. And I spent about 2 years apprenticing in gunsmithing, which was really my love. So after I'd made my way through that enough that I thought I could carry my own weight, we sold our house in California and moved up to Oregon to open the gun shop. Our years in California were good and fairly profitable. We managed to buy a house when we was there. We bought the house probably in about '63. We paid $8,300 for that house. We lived in it 4 years. We sold the house, paid the house off, and walked away with a check for $8,300, which was the original purchase price of the house. Plus, as I was apprenticing there, I was saving my money, and I saved $2,000 or $3,000 that we threw in the pot. So when we moved up to Oregon, we had about $10,000. Well, the reason for leaving California was in order to open up a gun shop, I wanted to be in hunting country. So I did a little research. We came to Oregon. I even looked into Australia, but we went over to Eastern Oregon. I looked at several towns to find out demographically which one supported the most number of hunters. And it happened to be the Dalles, Oregon, which is where we settled. And one of the reasons I chose the Dalles was I had family there, but also it turned out demographically with information that was supplied by Winchester and whatnot, that this was a good area. So that's why we settled into the Dalles. That would have been 1967 when we moved over to Hood River. I sold a gun shop. I worked for Hood River Plumbing and Heating for a while, but laid off for a year, first time in my life, didn't like it, so I decided I could find work. I had saved silver coins. I sold about $1,100 face value and got about $3,500 at the time. That was the money I used to buy my first machinery tools to start the sheet metal business, which operated at first out of a very, very small little Quonset hut. And then later I kicked the cows out of the barn. We remodeled the barn, put a slab floor in, and I moved my shop in there. The last 10 years, though, of the business, we bought a lot downtown, built a nice light industrial building, And then when I got ready to retire, I sold the business and the building. Well, in 1970, one of the reasons that we sold the gun shop was because Sue and I was, after 10 years of marriage, we were having a difficult spot. And it led to separation, which was for about 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months. And in order to keep from going crazy or hurting somebody or doing something stupid, I did something stupid. I went to England, I bought a Triumph motorcycle, and rode that motorcycle around about 15 countries or so over there. Met one of my life's best friends there. A young Canadian guy was picking up his motorcycle named George Ross. About the same time that we sold the gun shop, this is, middle of the Vietnam War, an awful lot of changes going on. And when I had the gun shop, I looked like a straight arrow. I had a crew cut, not a whisker on my face. But when I went to Europe, I didn't bother to shave, and I didn't cut my hair, and I just let it grow, and let it grow, and let it grow, and until it was in a long braid hanging down my back. And then I had a full beard for 19 years before I ever cut it off. When I did cut it off, my oldest granddaughter didn't recognize me. She had never seen me without a beard. I had just got back from Europe, had my new motorcycle. Sue and I resolved our problems, got back together, bought the property in Hood River, and then that's when we moved over there. Well, the farm that we bought, naturally none of us had much money. My sister Diane was going with a guy named Ray Petrie, and they found this very remote 30 acres up on a mountainside, 3 miles from the paved road. It was a pretty treacherous, actually, mountain road that went up the sheer wall of a mountain. One side was straight up and the other side was straight down. And anyway, we divided the acreage 3 ways, so we wound up with 8 acres, and Ray had 8 acres, and my sister Diane wound up with a 10-acre parcel, I believe it was. And the house that we built, which was a nice house, it was all cedar. We happened to be in Portland, and it was a Gothic arch type wishbone shaped house. And we had stopped to look at a model, and I wanted to know where I could buy the laminated beams that they used. And while I was talking to the salesman, the other salesman came in, threw his briefcase down, and said, "Joe, we've lost our lease. We have to sell these places and move on." So right away, how much do you want? And there was 2 model homes, or mountain cabins, whatever you want to call them, but they were all cedar, nicely made. Bathroom fixtures and everything were in. I bought both places for $3,000. Conditions were I had to move them off that lot. So the kids and Sue and I took crayons and numbered every board in the house just like an erector set. We dismantled every board, pulled every nail, stacked every board on a trailer, hauled it 75 miles up to our farm, and re-erected that house over a 2-year period of time. We did all this cash out of pocket, never went to the bank for a loan. We would build as far as we could, and then when we saved a little more money, we'd continue on. When we lived on that farm, we lived there 30 years, from 70 to 2000. And when I add up all the cows that we raised and sold, and all of the milk from the milk cow over the years, and all of the vegetables that we raised, and all the firewood that we cut, it was a phenomenal contribution towards self-sufficiency. It really was. We paid our property taxes by raising beef. We supplied our own beef, and we had extra to sell to pay for other things. We would usually raise 3 or 4, sometimes as many as 5, which was kind of overtaxing the pasture, but usually 3 or 4 cows every year, steers rather, that we raised for butchering. Youngest daughter Kathy always had a horse, so we had a horse up there too. We had peacocks running around. We had chickens, we had ducks, we had a large garden. The property had some orchard on it, so we had all the pears you could ever want. We built a nice little pond. We stocked it with 1,500 trout, about 3 inches long. And over the years, they got up to be 16, 18-inch trout. And whenever company would come, father-in-law or anybody like that, I'd let them take the fishing poles and go down to the pond and do some easy trout fishing. So yeah, we produced a lot of our own stuff there. I've written it down, and it amounts to many, many tons of beef, hundreds of cords of wood, thousands and thousands of gallons of milk. And from the milk, of course, we made butter. We tried making cheese. The cheese was a little too bland for me, but we ate an awful lot of bread pudding, made a lot of butter, sold some of the milk. We had people that liked whole milk would come by and buy gallon jugs of the whole milk. So all in all, I guess our experiment with hippie living, self-sufficiency farming, for us, it worked out pretty good. It was a great lifestyle. The kids loved it up until they got to be teenagers, when they want to be more engaged outside. But in their younger years, I mean, it was great. They loved it. But in 1971, the spring of 71, since I had seen so much of Europe and the kids and Sue hadn't, I decided to take them back to Europe. So we bought a Volkswagen bus, and off to Europe we went. We were gone for about 5 months, but still the travel bug was not satisfied. So in 1975, Sue and I returned to England and Scotland, and spent all of our time in England and Scotland that time. And then we didn't take another major trip, I don't think, till about 1994, when we went to Greece with Bridget, our daughter Bridget, and her husband Ed, and Gina, who goes by Finn now. And we went primarily to the island of Crete and stayed in a village just outside of Hania. But anyway, after Greece, we decided to travel around the United States some more, so we did some of that. Wait a minute, back up. Before 1994, in 1987, Sue and I went to Thailand, which was through Japan and then Thailand, and then we came down through Thailand and down through Malaysia, down to Singapore, and then flew back home through Japan again, through Singapore. Then in 1989, we returned to Thailand again. In 2001, we returned to Thailand again, and this time Sue and I and my brother Dick and his wife Donna and our best friends in British Columbia, George and Barb, and then our middle daughter Shelley. We all went on a tour this time, which was a great tour. We didn't have to take care of anything. But then again in 2011, I returned to Thailand again, met a friend of 20-some years there, and she took me up to northern Thailand, to her village of Payao, and we stayed there for about a week, and then returned to Bangkok, and flew to Perth, Australia. My values. Well, luckily I was raised by a mother who had good values, and she imparted most of those to me. Of course, some I've worked out myself through life. First and foremost, do no harm to others. Try to be honest. Do not steal. Do not lie. If you can master just those things and not lie to people or steal from people, you're well on your way to being a well accepted person in society. You also have to develop a work ethic. When I got married at 18 years old, it was like getting thrown in the river and it said, learn how to swim and do it quick. So luckily, in those days, you could find jobs. It's a pretty tough market nowadays. In those days, you could. I went to work right away, and working and raising kids, of course, that helps with your moral outlook on life too, because once you have children of your own, you want them to grow up and have hopefully the same set of values that you have. I've always believed in voting. I voted in every election since I turned 21. I believe in community support. I believe in giving to charity, that which you can. And I believe in helping others, but don't let people take advantage of you. I've never been a strong church-going person, but I've always had a strong spiritual background. I've read the Bible, I've read the Book of Mormon, I've read on Buddhism, Hinduism, the Jewish faith. I've had friends that were Jewish people. The fellow that put us up in Algeria in his house was a Palestinian and also a Muslim. We were put up by Bedouins and slept in the man's wedding bed, and he hadn't even married the girl yet. And he spread out on the bed for Sue and I his marriage rug that he'd got for his wife. It was a hand-tied, probably Turkish or something it looked like. But people have done good things to me for no reason at all. They've just stepped up and they've helped. And the feeling that you get from that, you want to pass that feeling on. And you start, just in your subconscious maybe, but you start to look for people that are stumbling. And you'll bend down and say, can I help you? No matter how minor it is, whether it's somebody broke down along the road and they've got their family and it's a hot day, you stop, you offer, can I help? Can I give you a ride? You know, but to do unto others as you would have them do unto you is a pretty good code to live by. It's not to say that I'm a perfect person. I'm sure I've hurt people's feelings. I was always kind of cranky, short-tempered, but easy to forgive also. I don't hold grudges too long. And luckily I haven't been wrong very many times in my life, and I've learned to accept the wrongs that I did receive because they're like growing pains. You take from those things what you can and use it to grow stronger. But things that have brought me happiness, there have been many things. Getting married brought me many, many, many years of happiness. Sue and I were well matched and well mated to each other. We loved each other and still love each other. And we worked very hard at trying to raise a family of children who reciprocated love, and all of our kids did. All of our kids are good humanitarian citizens, and I'm very, very proud of all three of them. Other things that have given me fulfillment is going into business for myself and succeeding. Of course, that's a good feeling. And the first business was the gun shop, and when I sold it, it was doing all right. And we sold out the gun shop, and I felt very satisfied in that. Then when I went back into my trade in sheet metal, I worked for a year or two before going into business for myself. And even then I liked my trade pretty well, but when I went into business for myself and spent 33 years building that business and a long list of customers that I had a really great relationship with, and I still have employees that worked for me 25 years ago, still call me a couple times a year and check in and see how I'm doing. It did give me a lot of satisfaction building a successful business, which when we sold it at a successful businessman price, and that's what I live on now that I'm retired. So that brought a lot of fulfillment. Succeeding at anything you do brings fulfillment. The farm was fulfillment because we took a piece of raw land that had nothing on it, and we built a house, and we built a shop, and we built a barn, we built a trout pond. All those things were so fulfilling to stand back and just look at what you'd done with your own hands, because we did these things physically with our own hands. Very little work was ever done by contractors. It was just done by the family. And that's a great fulfilling feeling. Just like standing back in the fall and looking at a woodshed with 12 cords of wood stacked up. You know how much work that represents. You also know how much that's going to save on the electric bill. And there's a great feeling of satisfaction that comes from that because you know you're self-reliant. It isn't just that you saved a little money. It's that you know that if you have to, you can do these things for yourself and you can survive. Anyway, that was very fulfilling. Basically, my life, I feel pretty fulfilled in my life. I've had a lot of travel. I've had opportunities to be in business, build relationships, had wonderful children, have great sisters and brothers. So my life, I feel very fulfilled. I don't feel like I've missed anything in life, really.